Hello and welcome to Cryptid by State, Indiana. I know what you may be thinking. 2 Cryptid by State videos back to back? Yes, I've always planned for this series to be a monthly thing, but something really strange happened with last week's video. First, I was shocked and thrilled that over 8,000 of you viewed my video on Ohio, whereas I normally see between 1,000 to 2,000 views. Secondly, I saw a massive amount of comments specifically asking me to talk about Indiana. I then got to thinking and decided for this special occasion I will break from my normal schedule and answer your call. So without further ado, and not much of a break in our travels, let's board the Cryptid family train and check out the creatures found in Indiana. I know that I say this frequently, but Indiana has quite an interesting history behind it. The state was first explored by a French man named René Robert Cavelier in 1697. Not long after this, French-Canadian fur traders started setting up stores in the area. With this, many of the settlers were also French-Canadian, and they set up a few forts for protection against any outside attacks. When the British arrived, they started to compete against the current settlers in the fur trade. This in turn left to the two groups fighting and became the start to the 7 Years' War, or the French and Indian War. It was called this due to the Native Americans siding with the French against the British. In 1763, the French lost the war and lost the lands that they had claimed. It was during this same time that the area first got its name, Indiana, as it stood for Indian Land or Land of the Indians. This name was an honorary title, since it was used as a way to remember the people who the land originally belonged to. Much like Ohio's history, the British lost the area at the end of the Revolutionary War with the Treaty of Paris. An interesting fact is that during the Civil War, Indiana had about 15% of the state's population sign up to fight for the Union Army. So many volunteered that it is said thousands of them had to be turned away. Indiana officially became the 19th area to become part of the United States on December 11th of 1815. It is at this point that I want to talk about Indiana's flag. It is quite unique, and to be honest with you, I'm not sure if I've ever seen it before making this video. The flag was created by a man named Paul Hadley from Mooresville, and it was officially adopted in 1917. As you can see, the flag has 13 stars in a circle, representing the original 13 colonies. There are also 5 other stars in a semicircle, meaning the states admitted to the Union before Indiana. There is also a star near the top that is much larger than the rest, and it is the 19th, which stands for Indiana being the 19th area to become a state. The prominent torch is meant to represent enlightenment and liberty, with the rays coming off it showing the far-reaching influence. Alright, let's get into the cryptids. For a state that is fairly landlocked, I was really shocked to see that many of the cryptids that are said to make this state home are actually found in the water. The first of which is one that has quite an interesting, albeit perplexing stories. It is simply known as the green-clawed beast, and for good reason. On August 21st of 1955, 2 women named Darwin Johnson and Chris Lamble were planning on having a relaxing day at the Ohio River in Evansville. However, all didn't go as originally planned. Chris decided to lay on the bank while working on her tan, while Darwin chose to go into the river for a swim. After a while of uneventful swimming, Darwin was a mere 15 feet from the shore when she suddenly felt a hairy, clawed hand grab a hold of her knee. She screamed, as this unknown assailant was powerful enough to pull her under the water. Meanwhile, Chris watched in terror as her friend fought for her life. Miss Johnson managed to kick away from the creature, but before she could swim too far away, it grabbed her by the back. Another fight ensued, and in a last-ditch attempt, Darwin leapt onto one of the inner tubes that the women had brought with them. Apparently the sound of the rubber hitting the water was enough to scare the creature away, since it immediately let go of her. Once safely on the shore, it was noticed that her leg was badly bruised, and strangely there remained a green print of a hand where she had been grabbed. According to reports, the green print stayed on her leg for about a week and couldn't be washed off. In some retellings of this story, there was also an odd residue of a slimy blue substance on her skin. It was later determined to be that of blue clay, which is only found in ancient lakes and volcanic ash. I have always wondered with this story if the green marks weren't actually bruising as well. Now, most people end this story here or try to link it with a similar creature found in Canada, but I think there is something a little closer to home. This cryptid is known as the Mill Race Monster, and sightings occur around Columbus. This being is said to be between 6 and 7 feet, have green-colored skin, long claws in its hands, covered in green slime, walks on its back legs, and also has quite a bit of fur. At first glance, many may make the connection to this being a Bigfoot, but I have to wonder if it isn't the same creature that attacked Miss Darwin in the Ohio River. Sightings of this creature started on November 1st in 1974, when a pair of women were walking in the Mill Race Park at 3 p.m., when they claimed that they saw this creature standing between two trees near the water's edge. It apparently lunged at them, but they managed to get away unscathed. On that same night, a woman named Tyra Cataline was driving near the park with her friend when she stated the same creature attacked her car and left behind long deep scratches in the paint and also gave off a terrible smell. These sightings were reported to the police, and once they hit the newspaper, people started to flock to the park to try to hunt the creature. Traffic became so bad that the governor actually closed the park to visitors during nighttime hours, and the police were posted to keep guard. Reports of this creature have been sparse, but apparently they do still occur, and the last known one was on October 10th of 2015 by a hunter. This very easily could be simply a Sasquatch, but I think some of the similarities between it and the green-clawed beast are very interesting. It had long claws, was seen around water, it was hairy, and it had green slime on it. As always, I'll let you decide. Another water cryptid is one that is found in Lake Manitou, and is called Meshakenebek, which is Potawatomi for Great Serpent. The lake that is found in Rochester is man-made and was created in 1827. At its deepest point, it is said to be about 55 feet, but since its creation, the local tribes have always held the belief that it housed a monster, and as such called the waters Devil's Lake. This creature is said to be around 30 feet long, had a very long neck with a broad head that resembled a horse or a cow, and its skin was dark with yellow spots. Many believe that this creature lived in one of the lakes that existed before Manitou was created. For many years, the Potawatomi tribe told stories of seeing this beast, and even back in 1827, when the lake was being constructed, the workers also had strange sightings. Men from all trades claimed to see a massive creature rearing up from the water with its long neck, and then just as quickly diving under the surface. Among the townsfolk, these stories weren't really taken seriously, but more and more sightings kept coming in, and opinions began to change. One of the most respected men in town was the blacksmith named Mr. Lindsay. Even he claimed to see the lake monster swimming around the lake with its head completely out of the water, appearing to be scanning the surface. Mr. Lindsay watched it until the creature submerged, and then went back to work, for he didn't feel the urgency in spreading his sighting. Most encounters seem to be of a non-violent nature, but that could have changed when two brothers with the last name of Robinson set out to do some fishing on the lake. While out there, they noticed a strange disturbance in the water a ways out from them. Thinking it was a school of fish, they paddled closer to it. Suddenly, the disturbance started to head right towards their boat. The two men started paddling furiously to try to get away. At one point, they saw the creature swimming after them under the water's surface, and then it lifted its head out of the water. The creature caught up to them easily, but didn't try to attack. Since that time, many people have come back saying the monster did flip their boats. Or, in even scarier tales, apparently a lot of people have gone missing on the lake. From what I could find, sightings were sparse, but they continued up until the 1950s. Some have theorized that it actually might have been a paddlefish, which could make sense, but I sure won't be testing that theory out. With the last water-based cryptid, I knew I had to talk about this one due to how incredibly odd and unexpected it is. Apparently in October of 1891 in the town of Vevey in Switzerland County, two really strange creatures appeared. I actually have the old article here to go by. People of the area started to take note of beings that have now gone by the name of mud mermaids. Apparently during this time, two creatures that were said to look like enormous lizards with human features, yellow skin, webbed hands with claws, and were about 5 feet long, began showing up on a sandbar in the middle of the Ohio River. The article states that on this sandbar there were many logs resting on it, and when the tide was high, the creatures would emerge and rest on them. During low tide, these mud mermaids would return to the water and hide in what many thought was an underwater cavern. Not much else is known about these things other than that they were carnivorous and left many remnants of mussel shells, fish bones, and animal remains on the sandbar. It probably wouldn't be a far stretch to think that they could make a meal out of humans as well. That is all that is known. There aren't any other reports of them leaving or of an attack. It is highly possible that this was an article written to stir up newspaper sales, but what if it wasn't? As I said before, the whole story is really strange. We are finally leaving the water and discussing a creature that is fairly famous but is also quite unique, and that would be the pukwudgie. This creature is normally found in Native American lore, and as of such, the name loosely means little man of the forest. This being falls more in line with creatures we normally link to the Fae. Commonly described as being a troll or goblin, it is said to stand between 2 to 4 feet tall, has a rounded face with gray skin, and more often than not, dirty blonde hair. In many cases, they are said to be able to change their shape to anything they wish, but normally take on a form of an animal. They are typically believed to be magic related, and are normally found in sacred places, such as the Mounds State Park in Madison County. According to the lore, these beings were at one time friendly with humans, but something changed, and now it is best to avoid them. As with many of its kind, they are generally seen as morally gray, but even as such, they tend to lean towards being destructive. If angered, they can simply result to causing pranks, but they can also go as far as leading a person to their death, attacking them with their bow and knife, or pushing them off a cliff. In reading about them, they do seem to act like a brownie also, where they can help out around the house, but if angered, they won't simply disappear, they will violently attack the family. In some stories, families that survived these attacks are still haunted by the pukwudgie's maniacal evil laughter many years later. The final being that I want to talk about falls into a strange realm. At first glance, it is simply an angry spirit, but the more you look into it, there may be a cryptid involved. This one is called the Cable Line Monster, and it is said to roam about in Elkhart on Cable Line Road, also known as Country Road 26 and 11. The story is that a man, or sometimes a couple, wrecked their car or motorcycle into a tree on this road. They hit the tree so hard that it is said no body was ever found, and many believe they actually became part of the tree. In most tellings, it is stated that after the wreckage was cleared, you could still see the impression in the tree bark where the body or bodies hit. After some time, the tree was cut down, but people driving on the road have seen the disembodied head of a man looking for his body. Now, this story is interesting, but this video is about cryptids, not ghosts. That is where things get strange. Apparently, in another variation, the accident didn't occur due to bad driving, but because of a scary beast that is said to reside in the forest. With this, reports claim that you won't see a spirit on that road, but rather a headless monster waiting for its victim. I wonder if this would be somewhat linked to the Grafton monster. Not a lot of detail is given about the monster part of this story, but it always is brought up along with the ghosts. Granted, I know this was a short story, but I felt it was different enough to include it. As usual, I like to include a few cryptids that I couldn't include in the regular video. The first of which would be the Pike County Monster, which is a Sasquatch that was spotted by various people in 1973. Now we move on to what was simply known as a wild child, and it was seen in various locations between 1839 and 1937. From all descriptions, this being was a 4-foot tall Sasquatch, so it is possible that it could have been a young one. Over the past few years, there have been quite a few reports of people seeing what they call werewolves with green eyes. In one account, a person was actually attacked by one, but managed to fend it off by kicking it. One of Indiana's most famous cryptids is called the Beast of Busco, and it is found in Churubusco. The creature has been spotted since 1949, and it is basically an extremely large, table-sized turtle that is said to live in Folk Pond, and it was given the name Oscar. I hope you enjoyed this bonus episode of Cryptid by State, and as always, I hope I made Indiana proud. Thank you to all of you who suggested this topic, and it just goes to show, if enough people ask about a certain thing, I don't have any choice but to talk about it. If you haven't yet done so, do please consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. Also, it would be greatly appreciated if you could share my videos with someone you know who may be interested in this type of genre. With that, be safe, and I'll see you in the next one. Later.